Hello, and welcome back to the Follow Your Spark podcast. It's your host, Gina here, and I'm coming on for a special solo episode all about how I've sabotaged myself in the past and what helped me overcome that. You wouldn't think I'd be so excited to come on here and tell you about all the ways I've sabotaged myself, and here's why I'm doing this. Pretty much every single one of my coaching clients, I have heard them say these words of, I feel like I'm sabotaging myself. I feel like I'm holding myself back. I don't know why I keep struggling with this. And they have this deep yearning inside of them to unleash something, to unleash their full potential, to pursue a creative dream, to take courageous, bold action towards something, and yet they're struggling. They feel like they're holding themselves back, and they feel like they're stuck in this cycle and pattern. And there's this awareness of it and this desire to break that habit. And because I've seen this so many times, and because I've gone through this myself so many times of moments where I felt like I'm holding myself back and that I've been able to overcome, that's what's inspired me to come on and share those stories with you today. And I know how valuable it is for me to hear stories of other people, especially when they have the openness, authenticity, courage to share the challenging moments and share what they've learned from that. I know how much I've gotten out of that. So I wanted to offer you the same gift of my experience. Because while I still have challenges, of course, in my life, I don't feel like I sabotage myself in the same way that I did in the past. And I feel like every day I am leaning into more and more my fullest potential and continuing to step forward towards my dreams and live this life of no regrets. And I want the same for you. Because again, what I hear so often with my clients is they don't want to look back at the end of their life and wonder, what if? What if I had pursued that dream? What if I had shared that creative spark inside of me with the world? What if I had given myself the time and space to do XYZ, whatever it is? And they don't want to look back on their life with regrets. And I don't want you to either. So that's what inspired this podcast. And I'm also taking it a step further and offering a free live masterclass Thursday, December 19th from 4 to 5:30 p.m., all about how to live a life of no regrets. In that free session, together we'll get clear on what a no regrets life looks like for you. You'll leave understanding how what's holding you back is different than you think. And I'll share the 5 key practices that have made the biggest difference for me to break free from those habits of self-sabotage and really embrace my full potential. So if you're ready to stop giving yourself excuses and reasons for why you can't do it and develop the confidence and courage to pursue your goals and live your most authentic, inspired life, join me for that live masterclass Thursday, December 19th. You can go to ginacasbarro.com/no regrets to sign up for that. And today I'm going to share stories about moments where I've sabotaged myself, what's helped me overcome them, and you'll begin to hear some of those themes come through that we're going to talk about in the masterclass. All right, my friend, you ready to hear a bunch of stories about how I sabotage myself and what helped me overcome it? Let's go. Actually, before I get into the stories, I want to define what self-sabotage means to me so that we can both be on the same page of that concept. Because there might be some emotions or reactions that you have when you hear that word self-sabotage. So what self-sabotage means to me is any instance where you make life harder for yourself. You cause suffering for yourself that doesn't need to happen, or you hold yourself back from what's really possible or what you are really capable of. You create limitations for yourself unnecessarily. You get in your own way, essentially. That's what I mean about self-sabotage. As you're listening to this conversation, I invite you to think about what moments might have shown up for you, moments where you might have held yourself back or gotten your own way. And if moments are beginning to come up, the first thing I want to invite you to do is have compassion for yourself, my friend. Because while it may feel frustrating, and I know I've felt frustrated in those moments where I've held myself back, I also believe they're a deep opportunity to learn and grow. And that if life was just smooth sailing every single day, it would be pretty boring. And those moments of challenge, those moments of tension, those moments of stretching where we ebb and flow and contract and expand, that's where the juice is. That's where there's so much available to us to learn from. So even if it feels annoying or frustrating or challenging that you might have held yourself back, there could also be something beautiful about it. And I'll share what that's looked like for me over the years, and you can explore and think about what that might be like for you. Okay, so I'm sure I could tell you stories from way, way, way back in my life. There's probably been many instances of self-sabotage. And the first story I want to tell you is when I was working for Lululemon. It's a moment where I had applied to be an assistant store manager. I had worked for the company for maybe 3 years or so. I can't remember exactly how long now, but I had interviewed a couple times for an assistant manager role and I wasn't getting it. And finally, I had this interview and my manager took me aside and said, listen, on paper, you meet all the requirements. You check all the boxes. You have all the experience you need. And yet, I feel like you lack the charisma of a leader. So they hired someone externally for that role. And I ended up even contributing to that person's training to get them up to speed in stepping into that role that on paper I was more than qualified for. So, what was my role here? How did I get in the way or sabotage myself from being open to receive this opportunity? One thing is, for a long time, store manager wasn't even a part of my goals. One beautiful thing about Lululemon is they really focus on vision and goal setting for every employee. It's something that when I was first hired, I absolutely loved and actually became a key piece of what I did for the company over the years. And I trained hundreds of people in goal setting and helped them set really powerful goals for themselves. So we had these papers in the store that were our vision and goals that oftentimes were posted even in the store so that other people could see and read our goals and we could support each other in our goals. And like I said, for a while, assistant store manager and store manager weren't even a part of those goals for me. Looking back, I see a big piece of that was because I didn't believe it was possible. So I didn't even want to declare something because I couldn't see myself in that position. I had this limited viewpoint of myself, what I believed I was capable of, and ultimately that was holding me back from even saying I wanted something. So that's something that I see, again, happen oftentimes with my clients of this hesitation to even declare a big dream because there's a part of us inside that doesn't think it's possible. So that was a piece of it for me in that moment that was holding myself back. Also, I think as I moved up the chain of management at Lululemon, there was a lot of different layers of discomfort that came along with that. One of them was managing people and being willing to step into that leadership role and that new level of responsibility. And with that comes a new level of risk, a new level of dealing with people's feelings, of having to disappoint people, of having to lead people, of potentially in the future having to fire people. Like all these different things that came with higher levels of management also came with their own challenges. And at that moment, there was a hesitation within me and a fear within me of, can I handle that? Can I handle those emotions that might come with showing up in a bigger way and leading people and having vision and being willing to take risks and try? Because there was so much about working at Lululemon that's even similar to being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship was actually a core value of the company of Lululemon, that as a store manager, as a business owner, you're taking risks. You're trying something and risking quote unquote failure, risking missing goals, risking being messy, risking trying something and it not working and getting feedback, all these things. So the biggest way self-sabotage showed up in that instance was not even being willing to see myself inside of that goal and being willing to believe that I might be able to expand into that role and into that potential. And then also the fear of the emotions that I might have to experience as I grew, as I expanded my capacity, as I stepped into the next level and the next level and the next level. And at the time, I'm sure I couldn't have articulated that to you. And looking back, I can see that's what self-sabotage looked like for me in that moment. And luckily, my store manager did not give up on me. And she was like, listen, I believe charisma is a skill that you can learn. It's not something that every single person is inherently born with. We're all born with different personalities and different skill sets, and you can learn how to embody this energy. And I'm so grateful that she shared that with me, because that's something that helped me continue to expand my belief, having someone else be able to believe in me, because my limited thoughts were definitely going on a tailspin, and I was, convincing myself that I was uniquely inferior and just incapable, and it was never going to happen for me. And I was telling myself all these disempowering stories about why I would never get there and why it would never happen for me. So to have the support of someone else who could see a bigger vision for me when I was struggling to see that for myself was a game changer. The second story I want to tell you was also at Lululemon. And this is a few years down the road, where I was now a store manager for the company. So I had gotten the assistant manager role, I had expanded my capacity and belief into the store manager role, and now I had been a store manager for a number of years. And like I said, it was at Lululemon where I really became immersed in vision and goal setting and training and coaching and developing others. And I realized over the years that that was my favorite part of my job. My favorite part of my job was developing people, was helping people see a bigger vision for themselves, to expand into their fullest potential, leading groups, leading experiences, coaching people. That was my absolute favorite part of my job. So I began having this dream of starting my own business. And while I was a store manager, that's when I first got my feng shui certification, because I always saw feng shui as, again, a tool of personal development, of discovery, of transformation. So my original plan was, I'm going to start building my business, and once my business reached this certain level of financial success, then I'm going to resign as a store manager and make this beautiful, smooth transition into my own business. And that's how it had to be. I had to be earning this much in order to take this next step. That's what I believe. And this is where sabotage can sometimes be tricky, because, and I just wrote an email about this if you're not on my email list, about all the good reasons we might have or give ourselves of why not to pursue something. So I could have told someone that reason of, oh yeah, I can't take these actions in my business yet because I need to be focused on my role at Lululemon, because that's what's stable and secure right now. So I can't put more time and energy into my business right now. I have to wait until my business reaches a certain level, and then I can make that transition. I had all these reasons. And if I had told you or someone else, they might have agreed with me. They might have said, yeah, that sounds like a really great plan. And yet, what I really wanted was to devote the majority of my time and attention and energy to my business. How it currently was I was giving my all to Lululemon and my role there, and my business was really on the side. It was when I had the time and space, I might devote an hour here or an hour there to my business. And I really wanted that to be flipped. I really wanted the majority of my time and energy and attention to be devoted towards my business. And then if I needed additional financial income while my business was growing, I wanted that to take up less capacity of my energy, of my creativity, of my mental space. And at first, I was in the space of thinking that's not possible, that I needed this role, Lululemon, to be a store manager in order to feel safe and secure. And as the months went by, and as the tension grew, and as the yearning in my heart got louder, I started to question that and ask myself, is that true? Is this my only option? That I have to stay in this role until my business reaches a point that replaces my income from Lululemon? Is that true? And what I realized was it's not. I have other options. And I began exploring what those other options were. And I began questioning the timeline of what I thought I would need in order to make that jump. So the biggest way I was sabotaging myself in this moment was holding on to this feeling of safety and security, holding on to what was known and familiar. My role at Lululemon was known and familiar. I knew how much money I was making. I, had my budget allocated towards that. I had my life planned around that. That's what was known and familiar. And making any kind of change was stepping into uncertainty. So the self-sabotage was trying to avoid that. Again, trying to avoid the feelings that come with stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing things differently, embracing the unknown. And like what often happens, the tension becomes too much and a tipping point was reached. And I thought, no more. Can I continue with what I have created here? I want to devote my time and energy to my business. So much sooner than I had originally planned, I resigned as a store manager at Lululemon and I stayed with the company. I went down to an educator position, working part-time, so that I could devote the majority of my time and energy and creative resources and capacity to building my business. And at the time, I was living by myself. I had, certain expenses, and I made the choice to move in with a partner at the time, and that cut my expenses significantly and was a huge support system at the time to help me through that transition. So again, I was able to ask myself, what else is possible? What do I believe to be true? What do I believe to be a limitation right now that might not be? How could I do things differently than I had originally planned? It also invited in an opportunity to let go of attaching my self-worth to external expectations. Because I had spent a number of years working up the ladder at Lululemon and reaching a store manager position, a position of leadership, of authority, of respect, a position that I felt really proud to have achieved. And I was going back to an educator position at Lululemon. I was letting go of that identity of myself, of I am a store manager at Lululemon, and creating this new identity for myself, this new identity as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and most importantly, as a human who doesn't derive their sense of self-worth from these external expectations. And that has been a journey, and one that I am so grateful to have gone down and to continue to go down, because I know that's a dead end. Anytime I attach my sense of self-worth, my value to an external circumstance, whether a position, a title, an amount of money, that is a recipe for suffering. And like I said, one I am grateful to continue to release more and more every single day. Okay, the next story I want to tell you is when I was beginning to dream about going on this year-long solo road trip. So to continue the timeline of the story, I had resigned as a store manager. I had started my own business. I had since split from the partner I mentioned earlier who I was living in their house. And originally I was planning on purchasing a house in Baltimore. And after a couple months of house hunting, I realized that was not the next step for me. And I had gotten this intuitive download to go on a year-long solo road trip. And the original thought came to my mind because I wasn't sure if Baltimore was where I wanted to be. Like I said, the house hunting process didn't go the way I expected, and I had begun to think about, well, maybe there's another city in the United States that I might want to live in. So I had gotten the idea to go on this year-long solo road trip and spend time in my top 10 cities that I wanted to explore and see what happened. And the vision evolved from there to be less about trying to find the next place that I wanted to live and more about following my spark. That's actually where this podcast was born, the Follow Your Spark podcast. On that road trip is when I started recording it. And the trip was really all about letting myself follow that spark of curiosity, passion, inspiration, and just seeing where I was guided. So from the moment I got the idea until I actually left 10 months later, there was a moment that I could have sabotaged myself. There was a moment where I was dreaming about, okay, what is this trip going to look like? How do I want to travel? travel? Where do I want to stay? And one initial thought that came to my mind was, oh, I should probably get an RV. I see people do this. I see influencers on Instagram, in their tiny vans and in their RVs, and they outfit this whole thing. And I started going down this rabbit hole of what it would cost to do this, what it would take to do this. I was almost like applying for contests to try to win, outfitted tiny home minivan thing, whatever. And I was going down this path. And I was realizing that this was going to cost money, obviously, to go down that path. And I caught myself in that moment. And I asked myself, wait a second, is this what I really want? Is this what really matters to me about the essence of this trip? And when I thought about and came back to what really mattered to me, some of the things that really mattered to me were having deep conversations with people in person, sitting at their kitchen table, first thing in the morning or late at night, and having real talk about life and about experiences and building these connections. That was one thing that was super important to me. So when I thought about how to best create that opportunity, it wasn't me traveling alone solo in my RV or in my tiny home and sleeping there by myself in this space. It was, I wonder if I could live with people along the way. And then I started going down that rabbit hole. And I got introduced to couch surfing, this platform where you can reach out to people on the platform and potentially live with them for a certain amount of time. And that's exactly what I did as I traveled around the country. For probably 80% of the time, I stayed with people through couch surfers. I stayed with friends of friends, contacts, referrals, and I had the most incredible experience that was totally aligned with the values and the essence of what was important to me on that trip. So what the self-sabotage could have looked like was me making things a lot more complicated than they had to be. Or again, thinking that I needed all these things in place in order to move forward. I need more money. I need an RV. I need to learn how to drive an RV. I need all these things. And that could have held me back from finding creative solutions that were actually way more aligned with what was important to me. So if your brain starts telling you a big dream is not possible, ask yourself, how could this be simpler than I think? What's really important to me about this dream or about this goal? What's the essence? What are my core values here? And how could I honor that in a way that feels easy and accessible to me right now with exactly what I have? What if I didn't need more resources, more time, more experience? What could I do right now? And I am so glad I asked myself those questions because I had the most transformational year of my life, which brings me to the next story I want to tell you, which is also on the road trip. So about 3 months into the trip, in September 2021, I had left in July, I found myself in Canada, in a place called Cortes Island, a place that I originally was not planning on going to when I thought about this year-long solo road trip in the US. And alas, there I was. So the first 3 months of my trip, there were a number of plans that I needed to be at a particular time. For example, I was meeting a friend in Montana at a particular time. I had some other very concrete plans along the way of destinations I was going to and people I was going to meet. And this trip to Canada in September was kind of the last of those things. It was the last super concrete experience I had planned. So that's, again, something that, I paid for ahead of time. It was a certain time and date that I needed to be there. And I remember on that trip, I was 3 months in and having this breakdown. I had just spent 3 months in a completely different environment and context that I had had for myself for my entire life. I wasn't working full time. I was traveling around the country by myself. I had never taken any kind of solo trip. I had a year where I didn't have my whole life mapped out. There was so much uncertainty and so much change about so many circumstances in my life that I feel like I was truly in that caterpillar to butterfly metamorphosis, that I was in the goo and aware that I was in the goo, and I was completely terrified. Everything about my life as I knew it was breaking down, was melting, was composting. And I had no idea who I was going to be or what life was going to look like when I emerged from that goo phase. And in Canada is where I met one of the most incredible teachers of my life, who I'm still studying with today, 3 years later, Jamie Alvarez Acosta. And I remember sitting, talking with him, crying, and asking him, what am I worth if I'm not producing in the same way that I was, if I'm not making money in the same way that I was, if I'm not working in the same way that I was? Like, what contribution am I here on this planet? And, tears are coming to my eyes right now as I'm sharing this, because he looked at me and was just like, you are valuable exactly as you are right now. You don't need any of that. You don't need the job. You don't need the money. You don't need to be producing anything to be worthy and valuable of existing in this life. You are a gift. Of course, that was beautiful to hear. And I was still in the thick of it. I was still in this place that I felt like I had just leaped off of a cliff and I was free falling and I was legit panicking. At that moment, I thought maybe I'll cut the trip short. Maybe a year was just way too long. Maybe I'll travel for another couple months and maybe I'll go home within 6 months. Like, what am I doing here for a year anyways? Like, where is this going? So what self-sabotage could have looked like, or almost looked like in that moment, was, there are times when you take that leap of faith and you might have felt that way of like, you just stepped off the cliff and you're like, what did I do? What did I do? And there's this desire to get the ground underneath us again as quickly as possible. And this thought of, am I going to go back to my old life? Am I going to go back to what I've known, to what feels like safety or stability or security? Like, being out here free falling is terrifying. Do I really want to do this? And that's where I've seen a lot of people quit and give up. I know it can be hard to keep going in those moments. And that moment again, and many moments after that, was an opportunity to find a sense of safety and security within myself and not in external circumstances. And that's something that I see causes sabotage all the time, of again, looking for safety, looking for security externally instead of being able to find it within. Because taking risks, doing things that you've never done before, that oftentimes feels scary. That oftentimes comes with a sense of uncertainty and insecurity. So if you're not able to feel those feelings, and if you are just trying to hold on to them desperately and avoid feeling unsafe, it's going to be very hard to take that step out into the unknown. So what helped me keep going in that moment, I remember the last day of this retreat I was on with Jamie, sitting in the parking lot, and I called another dear friend and coach, Mary Beth Highland, and I was like, I need help. I was like on WhatsApp, like I said, in my car, bawling, and I was like, I need support right now to help me get through this. And I was able to join and jump into one of her incredible communities for the next, couple months. And that was a huge support system to me to turn my attention inward, to learn how I could support myself no matter what was going on in my external circumstances. And that was a huge gift that helped me keep going and not give in to fear and turn around and go home early. And I feel like that's another illusion that can lead to self-sabotage, that pursuing our goals shouldn't be hard. Pursuing our dreams shouldn't be scary. They should be certain. They should work out a particular way. They shouldn't come with panic or sadness or all these different things. And that's, like I said, I think an illusion. And being able to let go of that expectation and be open to pursuing our dreams, coming with feeling a whole rainbow spectrum of feelings, can really help you have the courage and the willingness to feel that, knowing that you're choosing it, knowing that nothing has gone wrong if you're asking yourself, what the F did I just do? That's okay. That's okay. If you have a moment like that, it's okay. You're going to be okay. And there are tools and people and resources that you can use to support yourself, as well as, like I said, have the support of other coaches and communities who can help you navigate that time. Okay, moving on. So thankfully, like I said, I did not cut my road trip short. I traveled for almost exactly a year, July 2021 to July 2022. And when I came back, that next year was the first time that I was working in my business 100% of my time. I did not have any other part-time job. From then on, I've been working solely for myself. And another way that self-sabotage has shown up for me in my business mirrors what I experienced at Lululemon in some ways, in the sense that when I was at Lululemon, I, at first didn't even have assistant manager and store manager on my goals because I didn't think that that was possible. It was outside of my realm of what I thought I was capable of. So what I've learned as I've worked in and grown my business for the last number of years is a similar flavor of that was coming up. I had these limitations put on myself of what I believed I was capable of. Even though if someone looked at on paper my skill set, my experience, everything that I have inside of me, I was more than capable of creating an incredible business. I had this limited vision of myself, of what I thought my earning potential was, and I had created this ceiling of belief. And even at the beginning, I would set goals for how much money I wanted to generate in my business that year, and I might have a really great first quarter, but then the second quarter might be rocky, so then I would start lowering my goal. I was like, okay, if my goal was this amount of money, I'm going to drop it down by like 20 grand because I'm not sure. The evidence isn't quite there that I could reach my original goal. And then the next quarter comes along and it's again, okay, but it's not on par for even that goal. So I lower my goal again. And I'm like, well, this is still a pretty good amount of money. This is still a pretty good income. Like I'd be happy if I reached this level. So instead of expanding my self-concept of who I believed I was and what I believed I was capable of, I was lowering my vision. My vision was becoming more constricted instead of expanding. And it's interesting to notice, and I've thought about this many times, because when I went on the year-long road trip, I wrote this vision for what I desired to experience in this year. It was like a multi-page vision. I recorded it on my phone. It was 15 minutes. I listened to it every single day and night for like 10 months. And I was so excited. And I thought about this dream every day. And the leading up to the vision was really just as exciting as going on the road trip. It's like if you think about a vacation that you have scheduled next year, you might already be thinking about, man, this is the food I'm going to eat. And these are the places I'm going to go. And I'm so excited to visit this place or do that thing. It's so fun to think about that and dream about that. And truly everything I desired on that road trip came true. And when I think about my business, there's different times where I've worked on creating a vision, like I said, of what's possible. And yet instead of getting excited about that vision and exploring that vision and putting myself in that place, imagining how good it's going to feel when I'm living out that vision, I was letting my limitations get in my way. And I was crossing things off the page, right? If I imagine my road trip vision, it's as if I was being no, not this and not this. I don't really think that's going to happen. So I'm just going to cut that part out and settle for this. No, I didn't do that. And it's just funny and interesting to look at how I've done that in my business. And it's really come to light over the years of, again, how important it is to be able to create a vision and let yourself marinate in the possibility of that and to believe in your ability to create it. And this is one to go back to the beginning of this conversation, what self-sabotage means to me, and also the importance of not beating yourself up and creating more sabotage and more suffering if you find yourself sabotaging in the first place. There have definitely been moments of what the hell? I know how to vision. I know how to do this. Like I went on a year-long solo road trip. Why can't I do the exact same thing in my business? And this is where I 100% believe that we all come to this life to learn different lessons. And one lesson for me is to be able to really expand my belief in what's possible, in how I show up as a leader, in my ability to generate abundance, in my ability to let go of needing external validation in order to feel worthy or enough or capable, and learning to create this internal sense of safety and resiliency and empowerment within myself, regardless of all external circumstances. And if creating my business had been a piece of cake, then I wouldn't have the opportunity to learn those deep lessons. And I know 100% that everything I've learned along the way and everything I will continue to learn is only making me that much more powerful of a coach, because people come to me who have experienced the same thing. They have big dreams, whether it's their business or something else, and it feels hard. It feels like it's taken time. It feels like they've tried things in the past and it hasn't worked and they're not sure whether they're going to be able to do it. If I hadn't had my own lived experiences of going through that exactly, I wouldn't be able to support them in the same way. So what I tell myself and what I want to offer you is, what if the challenges that you were experiencing weren't a problem? What if they were the source of deep lessons and medicine for you that maybe you don't even know the goals in them right now? You might not be able to see how they're supporting you in the future, or how they're going to compost and turn into powerful fertilizer that in the end supports you towards your goals. So instead of making it a problem or judging myself for how, anything I've ever done in my business or what results I have or haven't created yet, I am deeply learning to continue focusing on the vision and continue embodying that person of what I know I am capable of 1000%, and letting go of the timeline, letting go of expectations, and really taking time to celebrate the journey. Because this year actually was a year that I surpassed an income that when I first started my business, I chose this arbitrary income that was that's when I reach that income, that's when I'll allow myself to feel successful. That's when I'll feel like I've actually built a business and I'm a CEO, and this is not a hobby, this is a business. And I passed that number this year. And on one hand, there was a moment where I'm well, now I have a new goal. Now the bar is higher. And what I've learned and what I'm continuing to practice is to be able to catch myself in those moments and have deep, deep gratitude for where I am right now, for the entire journey I've been on, for the human that I was 4 years ago who had the courage to invest in myself and my business, to everything that's happened along the way, all of those years that have helped me get to this moment, and feeling excited about the future, feeling excited about the journey that's going to take me towards my next vision, and being open to detours, being open to things going differently than I had planned, and truly having gratitude and celebration for myself right now. Because again, no external circumstance can leave me feeling happy, successful, fulfilled. All of that is an illusion. There's no amount of money in my bank account that can create that feeling inside of me. That's up to me. That's up to each of us to be able to cultivate inside of ourselves instead of needing this external validation. So this is a journey that I continue to be on, and I'm so grateful for the lessons I have learned this year in my business, and I am so fired up and excited to write out a new vision for myself and my business. I'm going to record an audio version like I did for the road trip. I'm going to listen to it every day, and I'm going to be excited, just as if I was taking a vacation, about what's next for me in my life, and also feel deeply grateful for what I have created right now. The next story I want to share is shifting gears to talk about dating and love. So when I got home from my road trip, I had been single for a couple years, and I think it had been 3 years actually. And I was having a conversation with my coach, and we had been working together for, I think, 6 months at the time. And she was like, we only ever talk about your business. Like, don't you want to talk about personal stuff? What about dating? Like, do you ever want to go on dates?" It's so funny. So it opened up this conversation where I started sharing with her all these fears I had about dating. Fears like, and again, this was at a stage in my business where like I hadn't reached that level of success yet that I thought was like this magical level of success. And I was still struggling with my self concept. And I had a lot of judgment for myself and was unpacking that of, not earning as much as I was before. What does this mean? All these things. And I had these fears that if I wasn't strong in my self concept, if I struggled to love myself and I started dating, then what if they judged me? Like, what if they had a thought about me of like, oh, like, what is she doing? Like, she's not successful because she's not making X amount of dollars. Like, I just felt like that was going to be so hard to deal with. And I was really afraid of that. And truly, it was all about my own self judgment, right? Because regardless of what anybody else thinks of me, how I feel is how I think about myself. So if I'm judging myself, that's what I'm going to be feeling, regardless of what anybody else thinks about me. So I had these thoughts and expectations of what dating was going to be like. I also had a big fear that it was going to take away my time. I had been in a lot of relationships in the past where I felt very consumed by those relationships and I like gave my all to them and I really put my priorities to the side. And it was also very like emotionally taxing and heavy and just not what I wanted. And I had this fear that that's what relationships are like. And I didn't want to create another relationship like that. I really valued my independence and I was really focused on my goals. And I thought that dating would be a distraction, would, not support me expanding my self-concept and would take away from my business. So again, she lovingly questioned my thoughts and asked me questions about, is that true? Is that true that that's the only reality possible? What else could be true? And I started thinking about what else could be true. I started thinking about how if I felt good about myself, it wouldn't matter what anybody else thought. I started thinking that I don't need to be perfect, that the kind of relationship I want to be in would be mutually supportive, that we could both empower each other to live into our fullest potential, that I was capable of being in and creating a relationship that felt good, that I was still able to prioritize myself and my needs and my goals and my time, and that it could actually be something that enriches my life instead of take away from my life or drain my energy. And I started again envisioning what could be possible instead of putting these limitations on myself or painting this picture for what I actually didn't want to be happening and avoiding that reality instead of imagining what could be possible and living into that. So after that conversation, I think it was maybe like a week when like that conversation was very potent for me. And that's the power of coaching. One conversation can completely change your context of what's possible. So after that conversation, I was in this energy dance program with this incredible woman, Erica Hart. She's also on this podcast. And she was leading a dance about visioning and embodying your vision and imagining your vision and putting the energy behind your vision. So I was doing this dance and I was holding this vision in my heart, in my mind of what I believed was possible in a relationship. And I was sending out these, magnet energy waves and offering it up to the universe of God. If there is a relationship that would serve me right now, please connect us. I am open to this possibility. I am open to this reality. And I really embodied that energy and that essence. And it was like a week or something after that experience that I started talking to this incredible human, which evolved into an absolutely beautiful relationship that transformed my life in many, many ways and was deeply enriching and nourishing and everything that I imagined and more. And even though that relationship has since evolved and transitioned into something else, it is still something I am so incredibly grateful for and would not have been possible had I been stuck in those limitations and that story of what I thought being in a relationship had to mean. The last story I want to tell you about is something that I've really been navigating my whole life and is present for me right now as I'm sharing this. And it's interesting, like, again, I'm having emotions as this is coming up. And what this is around is sleep. So for probably the majority of my life, I have had this experience of struggling to get what I thought was a good night's sleep. And over the years, I developed this identity of myself that I have insomnia. I have insomnia. This is something that's really hard. That's this like terrible experience for me that is so draining and has such a negative impact on my life. And it's just so frustrating. And nothing that I ever do will change it. And I think emotions are coming up because I feel like I haven't slept well in a couple days. And like I said, this was something really heavy and something that was a big part of my identity of how I saw myself. And it was working with the same coach that helped me through changing my mindset about dating that I was able to have a massive breakthrough in sleep. So I remember like coming to coaching calls and being like, I'm so tired. I haven't slept well in days. This is so frustrating. I feel delirious and I'm so angry that this is still something that I've been dealing with for the past 30 years. And she asked me if I was open to seeing things differently. And I probably hesitated because I was like, well, this is the way that it is. But yeah, I guess I'm open to seeing things differently. So she started asking me questions like, what does a good night's sleep look like to you? And I said, well, a good night's sleep would be I fall asleep as soon as my head hits the pillow and I wake up 8 hours later. And every morning I feel incredibly rested and it's so rejuvenating and wonderful. And she was like, do you know anybody who sleeps like that? And I was like, well, not really, but there's gotta be people. Like that's just like what sleep is supposed to look like, right? And she was like, what else could be true? And I said, well, it could be true that everyone's sleep habits and patterns are unique to them. It could be true that when I wake up in the middle of the night, which I often do, that is an opportunity for intuitive downloads and ideas to come through me, which often happens. It could be true that me going through this experience again is going to help me learn something valuable that's going to support me in helping other people who might be navigating something similar. These were all begrudgingly things that I started thinking about. And they did begin to expand my mindset of how I was looking at myself. And I realized I was adding so much suffering to my circumstances. Because whether it was true or not, that sleeping for me is more challenging, quote unquote, than other people, it was not helping that I routinely use the words, I'm an insomniac, this is so hard, this is so stressful, I'm so frustrated. Thinking those thoughts does not make me feel good. It makes me panic, it increases anxiety, it increases cortisol. All of those things are not helping me sleep any better. So whether it's true or not about what sleep is supposed to look like or whether I got a good night's sleep or not, it wasn't helping me to think those things. It was making my life harder. So after that initial conversation with her, I started practicing those new thoughts of my sleep patterns are unique to me. If I wake up in the middle of the night, it's okay. This could be an opportunity for ideas to come through and I'm willing to feel my feelings around this. So the first night I slept better and I was like, this is amazing. It worked. My problem is going to be solved. And then the next night, I think I woke up at 3 or 4 a.m., which I often do, and I was angry. I was angry and I was frustrated and I was scared that this problem of what felt like a problem was going to continue in my life and I didn't know how to fix it. It felt very out of my control and felt like it was having a big negative impact. So in that moment, it was invitation to feel my feelings. And And this is a big thing that I find causes sabotage. What causes sabotage is being unwilling to feel feelings. That might look like not taking a risk because you're unwilling to feel fear, uncertainty, doubt, etc. Or it might look like an impact on your health or well-being because you're suppressing emotions, or you're turning to distractions like Netflix or food or something else to make you feel better. All of those things are not supporting your goals. They're not supporting you living in alignment with what really matters to you. So when I woke up in the middle of the night and I was feeling all of those feelings, I started practicing feeling them. I started putting my hand on my heart and feeling all the feelings that came up and telling myself, I hear you. I hear you that this feels hard, that you feel angry, that you feel frustrated, that you feel sad. And I gave myself space to feel them. Sometimes I would get up and I would journal. One of my clients calls this rage on the page. I would totally rage on the page. Sometimes I would stab my notebook because I was so angry, or there would just be this blob of red ink and the scribbling. So yeah, sometimes I would do that. Sometimes I would feel my feelings, whatever it is. And that often helped. It often helped me eventually go back to sleep, or at least feel more peace about my experience and my circumstances. And I would begin to tell myself there are tools and practices I can utilize that can support me during the day. So instead of in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, if I don't get back to sleep, my whole next day is going to be ruined. I'm going to be exhausted. My brain capacity is going to be at 10%. I'm not going to get any work done, and getting spun out in these fears. I would remind myself, I can take a nap. I can do yoga nidra. There's this amazing 45-minute yoga nidra that I do that definitely helps me rejuvenate my energy when I feel like I don't get a great night's sleep. So I would reassure myself that I am going to be okay, that there are tools and habits that can support me, and that I'm not going to die. And that might sound dramatic. And in the middle of the night, sometimes that's how it felt. It felt like this life or death problem. So reminding myself that I am going to be okay and I will be able to navigate my life no matter what my experience of sleep is like was really helpful. And that was probably a year and a half ago that I had that initial conversation with my coach. And in the last year and a half, I 1000% have alleviated a lot of suffering when it comes to sleep. And a lot of that was releasing the anxiety and the fear and the judgment and the frustration that I shouldn't be experiencing this, that this was part of my identity. I was an insomniac. There was something uniquely wrong with me. And why did I have this particular challenge? It's not fair. I was able to release a lot of that. Not all of that, but a lot of that. So that definitely eased up a lot of my brain capacity. Like I said, one of my biggest fears was I wasn't going to have the brain capacity I needed to operate my business, to coach, to do the things I needed to do, to have the creative capacity that I needed to have. And by changing my thoughts, I was able to impact my experience of my circumstance. Here I am right now, recording a podcast episode after what feels like 2 weeks of struggling to sleep. And this is something that would have been a really big challenge a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. I would have said, nope, I don't have the energy today to do this. I don't have the brain capacity to do this. It's not possible. Now my capacity has shifted, my perspective has shifted, and my experience of sleep and my life has shifted. And over the past year and a half, it does feel like my sleep has improved in many ways on many occasions, and it ebbs and flows. There are other times and moments where it feels like a big challenge. And right now I'm working with a clinical herbalist to see what's possible in feeling like I get deeper sleep. And sometimes I think when I focus on sleep more, my anxiety builds around it again. I think that's part of what's been happening the past couple of weeks, that the more I think about this and the more focus I give it, the more I worry about it. So I'm noticing that. And that's something to notice for yourself too. Again, if there's an area of your life that you feel scared about, or something that you feel nervous about in the future, or something you're worried about, the more you focus on it, the more that becomes your experience. Versus if you have a different perspective, if you look at it from a different angle, that could be your experience. And our perspective can completely change the trajectory of our life because we take completely different actions based off of how we're feeling. If we're feeling empowered and confident and clear, you're going to take one set of actions versus if you feel drained and exhausted and frustrated and angry, you're going to take another set of actions. And another thing that has helped me tremendously with sleep, again, is learning to not wish away this problem and looking for what I can be grateful for. And this is something that when my coach first asked me this question, I was very resistant to. I was like, there is absolutely nothing about this experience that I am grateful for. It sucks. And the more I thought about it and the more I opened up to this idea, I was like, you know what? It is making me a lot more compassionate when I think of other people who might have health challenges that they're dealing with and that they are struggling with and feel like they're trying so hard to shift and it's not happening. It's helping me have compassion for them. It's helping me learn to feel my feelings. It's helping me learn to accept my current circumstances and let go of this desire for things to be my way, for things to go exactly as I want and exactly as I planned, and open up to there might be something in this for me that I don't know of right now. It's also something that really encouraged and invited me to practice something known as Tonglen meditation. And I have a Tonglen meditation recorded on my YouTube channel, so you can go there to find it and listen to it yourself. And essentially, Tonglen meditation is all about when you're feeling something that feels so overwhelming and that you would much rather not be feeling right now. It's this premise of being willing to imagine all the other people in the world right now who may be struggling with the same thing and to breathe in that emotion for them and for you. So when I'm awake at 4 a.m. wishing I was asleep, I think about how many other people on the planet right now are awake and they wish that they were asleep. It's probably a lot. It's probably thousands, millions, maybe billions, who knows? And I think about the frustration that I feel, and I think about the frustration that they feel. And I breathe that in. And then I breathe out what I wish for them and what I wish for me. I wish for peace. I wish for acceptance. I wish for compassion. And I continue that practice. And that's something that's helped me tremendously in that moment, not have a panic attack at 4 o'clock in the morning, and to calm myself and my nervous system. And that Tonglen meditation practice is something that has helped me in so many other areas of my life and is really valuable. And it's something that, like I said, going through this experience has helped me develop a relationship with that. Going through these struggles with sleep has also helped me pursue things to nourish my own health and well-being. I don't drink caffeine. I really try to exercise. Now, after meeting with this holistic herbalist, Alyssa Dennis, actually, she was also on the podcast. We've been talking about the importance of getting outside first thing in the morning and getting sunshine on your skin. So even in the winter right now, I'm realizing how important it is for me to go outside. Like walking is such a huge part of my day, especially in the warmer months. And looking back on the past 2 weeks, have just realized this morning, actually, I'm not walking as much. And that I really want to weave that back into my daily practices, no matter how cold it is. And I know for myself, my brain, I have a lot of energy typically. My brain moves really fast and I need exercise. I need meditation. I need these things that help me strengthen my vibration, mind, body, and spirit in order to feel healthy. And this sleep challenge is a reminder of how important all of those things are. And me developing that skill set of prioritizing those things, of weaving them into my life, has made me so much more equipped to support my clients do the same, to support them in developing healthy habits that nourish them no matter what their external circumstances are. So again, I can totally see how this is valuable, that we come to this life to learn certain experiences, and this was one of the challenges I signed up for. So I might as well enjoy it. I might as well embrace it and look for what I can be grateful for instead of resist it. Oh my gosh. Well, I hope that me sharing some of these stories supported you and that you got something that you needed for yourself today out of this conversation. And if you want to go deeper, like I said, if you want to explore what living a life of no regrets looks like for you and to hear more about the 5 key practices that I've distilled from all of that experience that really helped me let go of self-sabotage and expand into my potential, come to this free masterclass. It's Thursday, December 19th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. and you will learn things you can put into practice immediately that can help you break these habits of holding yourself back. Go to ginacasbarro.com/no regrets to sign up. And the last thing I want to leave you with, I'm laughing because I pull oracle cards before every podcast episode typically, and I want to share the ones I pulled with you. One of them says, I am worry-free. It says, I release worry over things I cannot control. Instead, I choose to focus on things that are pleasing to me. When I release worry, I allow room for solutions to enter my life. I am worry-free. That definitely feels like a great theme for this conversation, that so much of self-sabotage comes from worry. It comes from fear. It comes from uncertainty of the unknown. And the more that we can release worry of fear of things you can't control the future. You don't know everything that's going to happen. You can't predict everything. Sometimes things might need to go a different way than you planned for some reason. So can you let go of expectations and invite in more pleasure, invite in more joy, invite in more gratitude into your life? So that's a great theme. And the other card says, I am focused. I am focused on achieving my goals through deliberate actions. I take time to feel how it would feel to achieve my dreams. I visualize my desires through a lens of love and happiness. I am focused. That also seems like a huge, massive theme that I talked about in this conversation, of the importance of vision, the importance of the ability to imagine yourself fulfilling your dreams. So I'll leave you with that. All right, my friends, sending you so much love, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this conversation sparked inspiration for you. If you want more support to live a life of no regrets, I have an incredible offering I wanted to share with you. It's called Alchemize and Expand. It's a 3-month coaching program that starts this month in December, and it's a combination of one-on-one and group coaching experiences. It's focused on some of the biggest things we covered in today's conversation: creating a vision for yourself and your life that lights you up, taking time to reflect on the past year, on 2024, from a place of gratitude. And it will also teach you the skill of evaluating and celebrating yourself so that you can create a plan for 2025, practice taking inspired action, and learn along the way. If you're feeling like, yes, that is exactly the kind of support I want in my life, go to ginacasbarro.com/alchemize and expand to get all the details and join us there. There are a limited amount of spots left, so if you're feeling that spark, head to the website, save your spot, or reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk. I'm wishing you so many blessings on your journey, and cheers to following your spark.